And we are few this morning, but we are going to begin on time. Welcome to Together We Dream class. I want us to just spend a moment getting in touch with the spirit. And I'm sorry?
Lava is connecting.
Yes, I realize that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're recording, so I'm going to go ahead. Thank you, though. Thank you. I want to spend just a moment invoking spirit and asking spirit to guide and teach us and to connect us consciously as we move through this lesson. I want to start by acknowledging the divinity within you. Om Namah Shivaya, Shivaya, Shiva. 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 We acknowledge the presence of the masters, the grace of the Guru, and the blessings and guidance of Mahavatar Babaji, Satgurunath Maharaj Ki Jaya. I'm glad to see everybody. As I said earlier, we are few, but we are the exact right ones to be here. So I want to spend the first 30 minutes today just kind of catching up, because I know that the energies that are trying to express on the earth right now have been stirring things up. And I know they've been probably stirring things up for you, and they have been stirring things up for me. And we're going to talk. It's a perfect time, really, because the principle of rhythm teaches us how to catch the waves and surf the waves and avoid the waves in consciousness. So it's a perfect time to talk about what's being stirred up, because we have not only the principles that we can work with, but a particular principle that is specific to this time, or is ideal for this time. So let me just ask you to tell me what's stirring with you. And anybody can speak up, and if you don't, I'll call on you. Just what's stirring with you right now? What energies are you feeling right now? I will say that for myself, I am, this has been a really intense summer, but it's also been, even this morning, I'm feeling a lot of energy flowing. I told Renadev that I was feeling scattered because all the energies that are stirring up within me. And I can talk about the events in my life, but I can also just talk about the energies. What about you, Baba? What's going on with you? And you remember, you'll have to speak up because your microphone is not very loud.
Yeah, I know. I'm back in the 19th century, I guess. 20th, anyways. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I'm feeling the same way. It's weird. This Mercury retrograde was an SOB, and I'm hearing that from everybody, and it certainly was the case with me. However, it was very revealing as well. So I'm grateful for that. So I'm kind of working with that. I'm feeling scattered and unsure about a lot of things, and got a lot on my mind, and looking at some health issues and the cause of those health issues, and really having to make some big decisions about some things, like big decisions. Um, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm praying, meditating. Um, I'm still here. So for some reason, I'm supposed to still be here at this moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Feels like that could change any minute, but um, just I don't know. I'm sorry I can't be more clear. I'm just working stuff out, just trying to figure out. I do get aha moments, um, and I'm really grateful for them. But I get them and go, okay, spirit. Now what the frick do I do with that bit of information? Okay, I got that bit of information. Where do I go from here? You know. So
Yeah.
I haven't gotten the answer to that yet or the guidance, but it's weird. It's just really surreal. Life, everything is surreal and just so different. And I think we're just all trying to catch up to it. Like we're just changing so massively.
Yeah.
Our humanness can't even freaking keep up with it, you know? So, um, but I don't know. Maybe I'll have more later to share, but I can't come up with anything else.
Okay,
Right now.
that's okay. To be honest, when you said that I don't know thing, I thought to myself, excuse me, I thought to myself, I don't know how many times I have said some version of that in the last few weeks. I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't tell. I'm confused or whatever. Some version of that is constant. And when that is the case, I think back again to that principle that I was taught many years ago, that confusion is a holy state.
Mm,
It's a holy state.
I'll take
And
it.
we like to be in control. We feel more secure when we know what our foot is going to land on when we step forward. But it's a holy state to not know.
Okay.
Even the idea of beginner's mind is so holy. I mean, when we approach anything in our lives or anything around us, the idea of a beginner's mind is a holy state, which is, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't like it.
No. And you know what I think? I think that we're being taught to like it. It's like we're being taught to be in this energy, and it's something we're not sure of, and so, or used to, or accustomed to. But if we get accustomed to it, it'll be more comfortable. It's like floating on the water. If you don't know how to float, it's kind of scary, but if you learn to float, you can just kind of go with whatever's going, right? Yeah.
It's
Wow.
definitely surrender at its highest level. That's for sure.
Yeah. We are really moving in to the fifth dimension, which is a different state of consciousness. It's a different vibration. And the consciousness of the third dimension is control and command. And the consciousness of the fifth dimension is surrender. And also, it's the right use of willpower. It's not arranging things for everybody, but it is the right use of willpower, isn't it? So
Yeah, and the other thing that just came to me was seeing the big picture. Like I'm an Aquarius, and that's one of our characteristics. We can see the big picture, but I
right.
think we're all being asked to see that. You know, I'm really getting that just instead of focusing on all the crap that's going on, just if we can focus on the big picture and what the divine plan is and what's coming rather than all the
Yeah.
crap that's going on right now. So I need to do that for me. I know I do. So
Mm,
helpful
that's so right on.
that. So
That's so perfect. Yeah.
thank you all.
Yeah. It's that old Zen story that we've heard so many times about, the Zen master who's not, well, it's a Zen story about a farmer who lost his horse. His horse ran away, and everybody came around and said, "Oh, that's such bad luck. So sorry." And he said, "We'll see." And then, the horse came back and brought a bunch of other horses with him, wild horses. And everybody said, "Oh, wow, what good fortune. We'll see." And then his son, in breaking one of the horses, broke his leg. "Oh, what bad fortune. We'll see." And then, of course, the soldiers came through to conscript the young men for war, but his son couldn't go because he had a broken leg. "Oh, what good fortune. We'll see." That's the point. We never know, do we? What is in the pipeline? And we never know the whole idea of good and bad is really just relevant to this moment, but it's not relevant to the big picture. And I keep thinking of a kaleidoscope. I keep thinking of watching things move into focus in a different way when you turn the kaleidoscope. And we don't know what all those little pieces are going to form for us in any moment. Yeah. And I remember too hearing Joseph Campbell saying that everything is evil for somebody. He said, something's evil. He said, everything's evil for somebody. And so it's all just a big giant kaleidoscope, and we're all little pieces moving around and moving toward the light, moving toward the manifestation of the will of the Creator. Yeah. Thank you. That was good.
I'll hop on here. So Bava, a lot of what you said, I'm like, my neck is like, and I'm thinking about the shift in dimensions that you were talking about, Indira, from control to surrender. For me, it's not about, I want to be happy or comfortable with the process. It's realizing that, for me, my phrase is bend and pivot, and to go with the flow. And the key underlying force for me is, do I trust that everything will work out as it's intended to? So when what I've been saying the last few weeks, in the weeds, it's those moments that I can't see beyond the weeds, and I don't have trust that the universe is working with me and for me. And that's a huge shift for me. I used to be very comfortable in control. And, I've got some people in my family now going through some stuff, and not getting into the story of it. But I've had a conversation with my younger brother who didn't know what was going on. And I said, "See, I've changed. I didn't call you right up and be like, oh, this happened and this happened." And it's just, just growing and evolving from this place of, who do I want to be seen as? And a lot of who I used to be isn't who I want to be seen as today. And that requires me to go inward and do my work. And I feel like that's a lot of what is coming up, is this, whether it's resistance or whatever negative that I'm perceiving it to be, it's a reminder for me that everything starts within me, and I need to go within and tap into, who am I and who do I want to be seen as? And what is my mission here? Like, why am I here? Because for whatever reason, I chose to be here in this time, as uncomfortable as it gets. But I also think I'm seeing, one of the astrology things a couple months ago said we're moving into a period where things are going to be revealed that we had no idea of, and that clarity is going to hit. And the clarity has hit me in so intensely that I've seen things that have blindsided me. Wow. And again, it's required me to move through it, to go within, to do my work, to let go and trust that whatever's right around the corner, God, universe, whatever that energy is going to be there to serve me in whatever way that is. Yeah. And if I stay out of my own way, the journey will be on my wildest dreams, but I have to stay out of my own way. Anyway,
Mm.
it's kind of where I'm at, which is why I'm here this morning.
Oh, bend and pivot. I like that. That seems to be the entire way we've, our lives have gone. I'm speaking for myself and possibly Arunadev. We keep changing directions constantly with the house, trying to sell the house, and one thing happens, and we make one plan, and that plan doesn't work, so we make another plan. That plan doesn't work, and it's just getting comfortable with that. I think that is part of the lesson, part of the purpose of what we're doing, and letting go. Like you said, letting go. I feel like faith is the journey. I feel like we're connected to the divinity within ourselves, that we're connected with everything else at that point in our field, if you will, if you can call points in fields. But at that place, we are connected with all the divine, and we are connected with ourselves and with each other. And we can learn to read that. We can learn to, if we let go of all the rules and the things that we thought we learned in the third dimension, we can connect with that, our internal voice, which, if it's connected to God's voice, is going to guide us right every time, instead of planning and controlling and whatever. Whew, but it's disorienting. Yeah. Oh, bend and pivot. Awesome. Arunadev.
It's been going through some massive things for me anyway. And I was looking within, but I was looking within my head, not within my heart, not within the inner me. And the head was all about control, being in control, and being frustrated and angry when I couldn't be in control. And it took, a major shake to get me to understand that. And I had to, I think, the sense enough, with some help, with some suggestions from Indira, that I go and get some outside help. And I've talked to a couple of people and getting some assistance from a couple of people that are really are helping. And what they're helping at, honestly, is, I think, changing the direction of where I think, or changing the direction of where I'm looking within.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of looking in the head, looking in the heart. And I think the answers will be there, and I'm trusting that the answers are going to be there. It's made I feel some significant changes just in the last few weeks. And the challenges, the outside challenges, keep coming. As Indira mentioned, we're trying to get the house ready to go on the market, and I'm dealing with a contractor that overall does pretty good work, but my God, he's slower than molasses. and in fact makes molasses look like a greyhound. Um, so, and that's a super challenge. And I confronted him last night. He didn't leave the house till 10:30 last night, and still hasn't finished. And he promised to be finished on the 20th. So that's getting down into the weeds too much. But and I don't know whether he's going to be back or not to finish the work. And that bothers me, but it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. Because if he doesn't come back, I'll finish up what he's done so far. And the one thing that he hasn't done, won't get done, period, because I don't want to hire somebody else to do it. But I'll tell you for sure, I won't pay him until the job's done. You know, if he doesn't want to do it, then that's okay. Save me some money because I won't pay him for what he's done so far. Anyway, that's getting way too much in the weeds. Basically, what I'm feeling, gratitude, an awful lot of gratitude for a lot of different people and a lot of different things. And the ability to allow things to happen. Instead of trying to make things happen. I'm learning to allow. And you know, what Indira said about beginner's mind. I've prided myself on being an expert on a lot of things. And, you know, unfortunately, as Samyama says, you know, in an expert's world, there are few options. In a beginner's world, there are many. That makes sense. And I'm on my way there. I haven't gotten there, and I don't know that I'll ever get there, but it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You know, the journey is what's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where
We're going to
thank you for all of you for listening, and thank all of you for helping. I love you.
Bernadette, when you were talking about living from your head and now learning how to move into your heart, that really struck strong with me. And I was thinking, you know, when you said you're an expert on a lot of things, in your head you are, but it's when we're not living from our heart, we realize we're not. And I'm speaking me, I say we, not you, me. And I think maybe that's some of the shift that I'm moving from. Is what I'm realizing is that when I'm not bringing my best self forward, I'm in my head, which is fueled by narratives of my past. It's fueled by early childhood stuff. Really, I've been doing some work with a physical therapist that's taking me back into messages I got from 0 to 3, from my mother, my father, and their relationship, and how I'm seeing at a level that's kind of built, that's been the foundation that I've built from. So I'm carrying their stuff with me, and I'm living from my head. I had been, I still go there, but for me, it's not been safe or trusting to live from my heart. So I think I'm protecting my heart, but I'm not. And I'm hurting myself from that. And so, I mean, I think it's huge. I'm with you on that journey. And I don't think we ever get there. You know, I think life is ever evolving. And for me, I just want to peel away at the layers so that, you know, if I have 10, 20, 30 more years, that who I am then is a better person that's more aligned with my soul and my purpose than who I am now. Now, who I am now is a much better, more aligned person than I was 10, 15 years ago. And that's just how I see it. But then I think how beautiful you're on this journey, because I know many people who will never step foot in that road. So I think we have to honor that.
I think they don't do it, or we don't do it because we're afraid.
Exactly.
Irrational fear. I don't guess there is any rational fear, but I don't know.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
I think too, that when you think about in the head being control and the heart being letting go, surrendering and having faith, I think about that really, I think contributes to some of the culture wars we're having, because I just see people trying to control their lives, their surroundings. But what control do we have in the end? I don't know. Anyway, I'll stop, but.
I think for me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Margie. Are you done, honey? I can relate to both what you both said so much, you know, and I know for me, control is a big thing. And I'm aware that when I'm most trying to control people or things, I'm feeling the most out of control. So I'm feeling panicked and out of control. I think, like, Aruna, Deb, what you were saying, part of the stuff with, you know, I'm always right, you know, and an expert, that's a Sagittarius thing. I'm just going to go that, just going to throw that in, that part of astrology. You know, you're a Sag, I'm a Sag rising. So obviously it's in our charts for something to work on. That's what I look at it as, you know, because Sages are very opinionated. We are right. We know, you know, what's going on and stuff. So, and frequently we are, but, you know, it's just a thing for us. But anyways, I love what you both just said. I totally relate in the childhood stuff. And I think we're going at that collectively as well. Personally, having to heal all those wounds and all that trauma, and then collectively we're having to do that because we've been ingrained, you know, as babies from our personal caretakers, and then we've been ingrained from society of all this bullshit and pain and trauma and abuse. And so I think y'all are right on. You know, we're having to heal this crap once and for all, and we've all been doing it for years, little by little by little by little. I know I have, and I think that's, you know, what's calling us. You know, we're going into a higher consciousness and a higher dimension where that crap just is not going to be. It just doesn't exist.
Right. I think you're right. And welcome, Prasad. It's so good to see your face. Oh my gosh. The thing that occurred to me when everybody was talking is like, this is a different kind of practice in expertise, if you will, because we have been learning to control our environment in the third dimension. And what we're being asked to do now is to move into a different and unfamiliar dimension and control ourselves, not control, but you know what I'm saying? Work on ourselves. And I was thinking about it, it's like when you move to another country, it's very disorienting and you have to adjust yourself to the habits and the laws and the signs on the street, and all these things are different. The language, maybe everything is different, and you have to adjust yourself, and it's very disorienting. And then if you go to another country, you have to do it again, and you have to do it again. But if you've ever known, and I have, people who have lived in various countries. I used to work for an international school, and everybody I worked with was multinational. And there's a difference in their way of approaching things. So they change themselves in order to be more facile with changing environments. And I kind of think that that metaphor works with changing from the third to the fifth dimension. We are moving into a place where the old rules don't work, the old language doesn't work. None of the things that we are expert at work anymore. So we have to open our minds and learn like a beginner, learn like a baby did. A baby has no preconceived notions. And I remember thinking to myself, because my mom told me that I was saying sentences when I was 9 months old. She said, you were talking from the beginning. And I thought, why is it so hard for me to learn a language? Because I think, why shouldn't I be really good at languages? Because I don't learn languages in the same way. I learn the grammar, I learn the rules that I take from my own rules and apply to those rules. And that's not the way to learn it. So to learn to step back and be a beginner is to learn to be an expert in yourself and be an expert in, what did you say? Turn and pivot and turn, what Margie said. It's being an expert in learning to encounter whatever environment you're in. Anyway, what's going on with you this week? I know you've been moving and you're out in Oregon right now. Are you still there? Oh my gosh. So what's emotionally, what's that doing to you, girl?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that I'm late, but I forgot. I knew that it was 11, but I forgot the time change.
Yeah.
8 o'clock in here. Well, not 8:30 now. But like you say, to move from Georgia to here is not as dramatic as it was when I moved from Chile to Georgia.
Right.
But I always, my mother always told me that I was adaptable. I never said, well, that's the way we do here, or that's the way we do there. I'm always open to the change. And to be honest with you, I feel pretty good over here. Even though it's cold, I'm getting used to the cold, but it's a different cold. And I miss my son, I miss my family, but they're okay. They're okay. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for years. And it's not that I was regretting not to be able to do it, but I knew that it wasn't my time to do it. I was raising kids, I was working,
Right.
and I said, this is my time. And it's so true that you really have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. And at the beginning, I felt guilty. I said, why am I feeling so good about it? But then again, I deserve it. I think that we are deserved of what it makes us feel better. So, and I'm so grateful that being in this group, I mean, it has been such a change in my life that I'm just enjoying the journey.
You're kind of embodying what we've been talking about, which is getting the beginner's mind on and just going with whatever comes up. Because, a month before you moved, you had no idea you were going to move. And then here you are that quickly and adjusting so quickly. So you're sort of embodying that whole principle that you'll have to listen to the rest of this later on, because you're kind of embodying the whole thing that we're talking about. So, but, well, we're going to have a chance to, pardon me, my voice is funny today. We're going to have a chance to talk more at the end, but I want to talk about rhythm, which is chapter 11, I think, of the Kybalion. We're talking about the principle of rhythm. Now, last class, we talked about polarity, which, we discussed the polar opposite of each energy or each item or whatever, each process being one or the other, and us going between the two. And this principle is about how we get back and forth between the two. And then the month before that, we talked about vibration. Everything vibrates, from rocks and furniture to sound, or a fleeting wish for an ice cream cone. Everything vibrates. And we learned that we have the power within ourselves to change our state by raising our vibration, because we do control our thoughts, and we do control our actions along the giant scale of vibratory frequencies that exist. We can pull ourselves toward a higher vibration. And this month, as we study rhythm, pardon me, the principle tells us that between those two opposite poles that we discussed last month, there is a constant swing back and forth, and that the size of the swing to the left is the size of the swing to the right, or the momentum, or the energy, or whatever verb you want to use, or not verb, but anyway, whatever action you want to talk about. It's one is exactly the size of the other. It can be a high frequency swing across an infinitesimal distance, like in an atom, going back and forth a billion times a second, or it can be a huge, vast swing, such as the birth of a universe and the death and the rebirth of another universe, and all that happens. So the swing happens. As above, so below, as within, so without. These principles run through everything on the physical plane and on the planes directly above the physical plane. So as the swings become wider, in other words, as we're talking about something that is slower or more vast in its swing, the swings then interact with more and more complexity. So to get what I'm saying, imagine a huge wave coming into the shore, right? And imagine that there's very little to slow it down, and it just comes in and dissipates, and then it goes back out. But now imagine that there's a huge boulder in the way, like you see on the West Coast, where Raquel, where Prasad is. Pardon me. Imagine that huge boulder is in the way. So what happens? Well, the wave is interrupted, and the water, or the energy in the water, changes directions. No energy is lost. It still has the same momentum. No energy is lost, but it's redirected, isn't it? And now imagine that same wave is coming in, that same rock is there, and now there's a boat in the water. And now imagine there's a man in the boat. And now imagine the man has an oar, and he's rowing like mad to avoid the rock. All these interfering waves come together, and it gets more and more complex as you talk about. When you're talking about an atom, it's less complex than a universe with all the universe contains, right? So you have more interference. So the crash itself, like imagine that the man is rowing like mad, but he crashes into the rock anyway. But then imagine that he can magically, and this is something important to think about, because this speaks to the practices that we do. Imagine that he can go back magically and try this again. If he kept the knowledge that he gained from before, would he maybe row in a different direction? Would he maybe jump out of the boat and swim? Imagine that he keeps, like Groundhog Day, being reset over and over and over like this. He would undoubtedly get better and better at working his will upon the situation. He would have learned more about the properties of waves and the behavior of waves, not to mention how waves are affected by rocks and boats and oars, and by the intentions of the man in the boat. So keep that in mind as we go forward, because we're going to learn today, we're going to talk today about learning to use these waves in a different way, knowing that everything goes and comes. When we talk about rhythm, it requires that we use words of opposites. So rising and falling, action and reaction, creation and destruction, outpouring and indrawing. And in each of these cases, one motion provides the genesis of its opposite motion. And this principle explains the complete history of humanity and your complete history evolving as a soul. All worlds, all persons are born and they grow and develop, and then they die. They begin to disintegrate, they die, and they come back. Again, a larger version of the same principle is operating in everybody's lives and in the universe itself, in the world itself. So how to use this principle. How to use this principle, knowing that the swing to the right is always equal to the swing to the left. How many of us have learned, even if only partially, how to raise your own vibration? A little bit anyway. How many people have learned how to raise their own vibration? Yeah. With music, maybe we raise our vibration. With meditation, what else? How do you raise your vibration?
Just to be aware of it too. Just to be
Awareness, consciousness. Nature. Oh, going out into nature. It's a way that so we know we can do that, right? And then let's talk about another thing. How many have noticed that after you've experienced a particular high, like being ascended, or you're having a wonderful epiphany, a realization, how many have noticed that you almost inevitably then, I shouldn't say almost, experience a low? After a high comes a low, right? Do you have to experience the pain or the depression or whatever? This swing is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. The swing is going to happen because energetically, that's the principle of creation. It goes back and forth. But the Kybalion, chapter 11 of Kybalion, talks about something called the law of neutralization. And that law of neutralization is an operation on this wave that consists of focusing one's attention on a higher place, above the vibrations of the level of the mental activity. So the negative swing that is inevitable as a result of the positive swing can sometimes not be manifested in consciousness because your focus, your will, your ideation in the moment is focused in a higher place. Think of it like this. It's like rising above a force and then letting it pass beneath you. So masters have learned to do this. They're able to raise themselves to a fixed position and allow the mental pendulum to swing back along the unconscious level, right? And anybody that's had any degree of self-mastery does this more or less unconsciously already, but masters do it consciously with their will, and they are adept at doing it. So, and the way to think about this, a good metaphor is, how many have ever stood in an ocean, stood in the shore with you and watched a wave coming, and then you jump above the incoming wave and allow it to pass underneath you. You haven't broken any physical laws. You haven't taken the energy out of the wave. You have used your own energy and your own will to push your feet against the ground and rise up. out of the immediate path of the wave. And if you think about the air that you jumped into as a higher mental state, you are in that state just long enough for the wave to pass under it. The wave still happens, right? You simply do not suffer. It's crashing against your body in the same way, right? Now, most of us, in all honesty, we live in the tides of our emotions and our moods and our feelings. But if it is important enough to you, you can learn to escape the ravages of the swings through practice and determination. And I want to say it's not the same as stuffing an emotion. An emotion is like standing there and taking the wave and taking the energy in your body. This principle is different. The energy cannot be destroyed, but you can change your state. And we are in the perfect time for that as we learn to move into the fifth dimension. We are learning to control our state rather than the conditions. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Your willpower, your decision to jump the wave is superior to the wave, which is going to continue happening. The wave will happen regardless, yes, but not in your consciousness necessarily. So how do we practice this? And I'm switching back and forth between the physical wave and the frequency of a different mental state, right? But let's stay with the physical wave for a minute and go back with that man who was in the boat, or just you standing in the ocean. That's even more relevant, I think. How would you learn to jump the waves? You didn't know how to do that the first time you went through unless somebody taught you. You went out into the ocean, you got hit. And eventually you began to realize that you could jump the wave, but you probably got the timing wrong, but eventually you got familiar with the wave patterns that were coming to you. You practiced on the timing and you paid attention. You can't be, watching the birds in the sky, because then the wave will come and get you. You have to pay attention. You have to focus. You have to practice, practice, practice until jumping over the wave becomes second nature. It's a little like learning to drive a car. All of us remember when we first learned to drive a car, and the first time we put on the brake, we probably sent people through the windshield because we didn't know, really, we hadn't learned the properties of the brake. And eventually we were very conscious and we're like, oh, let me do it a little bit. Oh, we probably did it wrong. We did it too light. We did it too heavy. And eventually we got so that consciously we paid attention and we could handle the brake and make it smooth. And now, as we all know, we can chew gum and eat a sandwich and talk on the phone and everything. And our body just knows what to do with the brake. We can brake easily and smoothly without even thinking about it. And that's kind of the same principle that happens with this wave thing. With the frequency, we learn to jump over the wave and pass it into an unconscious part of us. And so we then learn to do it consciously, and we pay attention, we practice, 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 and then it becomes second nature. All right. So it's learning to operate in this dimension up here instead of the third dimension physicality all of the time is, has anybody heard, if you ever heard of psychokinesis? I think that's what it's called, psychokinesis, where in my day, I remember this guy named Uri Geller, who was able to bend spoons with his mind. I remember watching him on Johnny Carson when I was young. And, science hasn't confirmed the existence of psychokinesis, but it does happen. But it's working on the mental level to relieve the mental stress can certainly work on the physical level. Only a few masters have achieved psychokinesis in the physical realm, but working on the mental realm, it's much easier because there's no physical resistance. You can, I'll give you an example. Every few weeks I have a wax on my lips. And I have gotten so, instead of, I used to dread it like fire, like, oh, and I'm paying attention to it. And now I'm learning to put my attention somewhere else. It still happens, but I don't pay so much attention to it. I think, I mean, you know, I can either create a physical sensation by doing this and concentrating on that sensation, and then it happens, but I don't have to suffer the consequences of it. So some things can be handled on the unconscious level. So yeah, so in fact, that's another thing that we do automatically. In dreams, right? When we have dreams, that's our psyche processing stuff on the unconscious level so that we don't have to process it on the conscious level. We are set up for this. My companions to evolution, we're set up for this. We're wired for this. We're wired for a time to be moving into this because we are doing it automatically in our dreams. We can do it with eye movements. We can do it with, you know, with energy movement without words. We can decide where to place our attention. We can decide where to move in energy. You can even, like, if you can even put a circle of energy around you and protect yourself and feel protected in that energy. You are wired to do this. You are taught not to do it. You are taught the physicality of the world and how to control that, but you are wired to do the other as well. Your psyche is wired to move energy in a different way than physically. So if you use chair, you know, in the third dimension, you can use two hands to push a chair and it moves. In the fifth dimension, you use your willpower to move energy and it works. And then if you are a master and your focus is complete and your focus is consistent and sustained, you can literally move something in the third dimension. Very few people can do that. I know that Munishwarji has done that. And so you know, we're learning to practice that so that we can have a new earth one day, that we can be, but we can't be trusted with that kind of power right now because our hearts are not pure, right? So we're learning all on both levels at the same time. We're learning to exercise this facility. We're also learning to clean up our lower chakras. And as we do that at the same time, we are moving into a new heaven and a new earth. Right. So I'm going to give you one more example just to take in, because I think you're going to have to think about these things and mull them over a little bit and let them absorb in your field. But here's another. Imagine there's a big thing, a big boom swinging this way. And imagine you put in its path a big, like, just, I can't think of anything, but imagine you put a big rock in its path and the boom comes, bam, immovable object, irresistible force, right? And what happens then? That pendulum does not swing as far, but the energy is absorbed into the rock, maybe even breaks up the rock, but at any rate, it makes the rock's internal cells just go crazy. So that may be the difference between what we were talking about before and trying to block emotions. When you try to block your emotions, you absorb your emotions, and they can do damage to you. But rising above them is something else. Jumping out of the wave is something else, isn't it? How does that apply? How does that apply to your life, to the situation in your life? Because, and know this, nothing, including your mental state at any time, exists in isolation. Your mental state is not just determined by your willpower. It's also determined by genetics, your brain chemistry. It can be determined by trauma in your life. It can be determined by your physical health, by your beliefs, by your habits, by the events around you. So when you're learning to do these things, give yourself some support, because mastery never came without effort. And if you are fortunate enough, as that man in the boat, to row away one time and avoid it, you didn't learn anything. You didn't learn anything at all. But if you fell out and had to start all over, you learn and you learn and you learn. And then you take what you learn and you apply it to your whole life, and your whole life gets better. So it's a gift to not win on the first pass. It's a gift to not win on the first pass. You can congratulate yourself for winning on the first pass. And a few wins are wonderful, but also congratulate yourself when you don't win, because if you learn something that you can bring to the rest of your life, then it's like learning to read. It was gruesome when we didn't want to go to school and learn our ABCs and all that stuff. But imagine your life if you couldn't read. You know, the little things that you learned spread across everything in your life. And so most of us will have to focus and bring presence to the operation of what we're trying to learn in this instance. But we can do that. And when we do that, wow, what are the results? And mastery, like I said, never came without effort. But can you imagine being able to hop over all the waves of your depression, your terror, your rage, your hopelessness? Can you imagine navigating the tides of your life with mastery? That's what these principles that we're learning here teach us is possible. And it's not something that we can learn by reading it. It's learning by what? Practice, practice, practice. So there's a lot here, and I encourage you to read this chapter maybe 2 more times or 3 more times until it begins to sink into your awareness at an unconscious level, because this is really important stuff. I think we've gotten to the point in these lessons that this is just where the meat really is. And so, yeah. And before we leave the metaphor of the wave, I want to use it in its opposite form too. What if instead of avoiding the wave, you want to catch the wave and use it? Use the energy of the wave to accomplish something that you want to accomplish. We won't go into that, but just I invite you to consider it and to think about how both sides of the equation affect your situation right now, whatever that may be. And maybe we'll explore that in the discussion if anybody wants. And because this is important stuff, you guys, it's important stuff. And finally, remember what we said in our last class. And this is really important: infinite mind, or the all. And what infinite mind and our finite minds are simply different degrees of the same thing. And we can move along that spectrum at will if we learn to. And this is one of the ways that we do it. It's possible to master our mental states instead of being their slave. It's possible. Not easy. Is it important enough to work on? And we've all been working on this. I mean, all of us have come a long way from where we were before, I'm sure. But this is probably why you've come a long way, is these are the machinations that are happening under the surface, these ideas about the wave and what you're doing consciously and unconsciously. So that's it for the lesson. How does that strike you? What questions do you have? What answers do you have? Or what thoughts do you have? What did this bring up for you?
May I say something?
Yes, please.
It brought a lot of experiences. I think the waves can be, I love the analogy that you made. It's so, I love the ocean, so it made kind of clear to me. It can be in different aspects of your life, but the one that has hit me the most, or I can relate the most, is on my working experience. When you were when you saying about the pendulum in my life is like, I was okay with working where I was working. The life was going good, it was going up, until that rock that you put in the middle of the demotion that I had, it made me really look into myself to learn how to skip or to work with those ways that I was living, that I did not realize how hurtful or how bad they were for me, for myself, for my health, for everything in me. So it took that rock, that demotion, to work on myself and teach me how to respond now to the same behaviors that they were damaging me.
Oh. Sort of took you out of the middle of it and allowed you to look at it from a distance and develop the skills over here where it's not so hard.
Yeah.
What a perfect analogy.
And that's the rhythm. That's the rhythm. My rhythm completely changed right now. In the pendulum, before you said the pendulum, I was looking like a mirror. I was mirroring myself. And I was saying to myself, you're not going to react the same way this time. You learn, you know how now, because you're awake, you hit that rock. And that's where I am right now.
Wow.
So it makes completely sense to me.
Yeah.
On the working aspect. It can be applied to the romantic or to your kids, or because my son is living it too. So it's so true that we need to be awake and learn from what we are reading. So we don't, it's not that we wanted to not experience life, but we know how to do them in that third dimension.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I didn't understand what the third dimension was, but it's getting to be more clear to me.
Yeah. I think it's not clear to anybody really, because we don't know what it is. You know, we
Yeah.
haven't, we're, our focus, our consciousness is completely absorbed in the third dimension. And that's
And
what
it
we're
happened to me yesterday. I had to take a class that, it just like, I'm a test stress. I feel anxiety when I have to take a test. And one of the part of the test was to identify some rhythms, cardiac rhythms.
Oh,
And I thought so much on it. I said, he is going to give me that rhythm. He is going to give me that rhythm because I know what to do. I know how to identify it, and I know everything about that rhythm. And he gave me that rhythm.
wow.
And I said, oh, okay, I know what to do.
Yeah, you were working in the fifth dimension. Wow. See, that's a wonderful example. Thank you for bringing that up. You were working in the fifth dimension. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, he said, oh, yeah, you're right. I said, I didn't tell him, I know, work with your mind. But it's just, and it's just a good feeling to be aware of what is going on with yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, and we have not been taught to honor our own mastery. Many of us have been taught from childhood experiences even to not believe in our own possibilities. You know, when we fail, like, yeah, that's par for the course. I always fail, well, you know, or whatever, or this is not, you know, we have not been taught to allow for mistakes and mastery. We've been taught that, I mean, especially I think in my generation, and I know, and it's less and less as it goes along, but you know, it was like that whole never let them see you sweat generation, you know, never let them see you make a mistake, never let them, never admit defeat, never apologize, never, you know, never show any weakness. And so all that stuff is like that boom hitting a rock. It goes into your body because you can't show it. You can't, you have to hold it tight and it goes into your body. And I want to just encourage us all to claim our mastery. We were wired for mastery. And what you just said, Prasad, was beautiful, a beautiful example of that mastery. I mean, does anybody else have any examples of that where you worked on the fifth dimension, even though you may not have thought of it just like that, where you worked on the fifth dimension and it manifested on the third dimension? I can tell you that when I came up with that meditation, that the Connecting All Hearts meditation when I was in the nursing home, that was an example of that. It was, you know, I learned to, I mean, I did a meditation and I learned to connect on the light plane with other people who are not being kind to me. And I learned to love them anyway. And I held hands with them on the light plane, on my light body, reached out and held hands with their light body. And I said a prayer, help me to love you as you need to be loved. And I did that until my heart changed. And the next day, and from that day forward, whoever I did that with was just so loving to me from that day forward. And I remember doing that with my doctor one time, because my doctor was going to want me to do chemo and all the stuff, and I didn't want to do it. And I didn't believe I had cancer. And it was a long story, but at any rate, I did that with my doctor, and his nurse said, you know, he's going to want you to do stuff. And he said, and I promise you, you're going to, and I was just dreading it. And I just sat in his room and in the room and waited for him. I started doing that meditation. When he came in, he literally got tongue tied. And you have to know this man to know tongue tied is not one of his things. He reminded me of a South American dictator. He was full of power, you know, he was just like, you know, he was just full of power. And he walked in and he looked at me and he just said, well, I don't know. I guess we don't have to do anything, And I was like, oh my God, it worked. And I couldn't have planned that. I couldn't have said I wanted that to happen. I just loved him. So that's the way we work on the fifth dimension a lot of times. What have you guys done in that way?
Ho'oponopono.
Ah, yes, tell us about that.
I've just used it to, when, the same situations as you, of just having stuff going on with somebody else and with myself, and just repeating that over and over and over, and just finding it to be very helpful.
Describe the Ho'oponopono to us in case somebody is not familiar with it.
I love you, please forgive me, thank you. Or I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And it's basically you're clearing stuff that you've helped to create in another, that's within you and you've helped to create in another. So we're all connected. So I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm saying it to myself. I'm also saying it to whatever the situation is, because I had a part in that situation on some level, or in that person's behavior, or whatever happened to that person, or whatever. You could Google it. There's a whole, amazing story around it.
I loved how you said that, Ava, when you said you're saying it to someone that you've created something in them, something in you has created something in them.
Yeah, it's like the doctor who created it, the prayer, was head of an asylum, of the most insane people. And he said that he contributed to their insanity somehow, just by being consciously connected. We're all one. So by saying that, he just said it over and over. He never even saw patients. He just looked at their file and repeated that over and over and over to them. And they ended up closing the asylum because people started getting sane and healthy and released. And it's just an amazing, amazing story. Google it. And I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but yeah, it's an amazing story. And
Wow.
powerful prayer.
Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's exactly it. And, one of the things that was surprising to me with the meditation was I did not say this for somebody else's sake. I didn't say it because I wanted them to change. I had the fact that they did change was a complete surprise to me. I said it because I didn't like the way I felt. I was remembering how grateful I was in the beginning because I was feeling, surrounded by love and everybody was wonderful. And I was like so grateful. And then later I was feeling resentful. And I was like, I want to feel that way again. I don't like it. So I did the meditation in order to change me. And that's really similar to your Ho'oponopono, and I cannot ever say it right, Ho'oponopono, because you're changing me. But it ends up, because we're all one, having a blessing effect on somebody else. And it's not manipulative if you are only working on yourself. And if you're not, because it could be manipulative, and that's not what we want. We want everybody to have their own experience. But the fact is, I was creating something because they changed when I changed.
What is that you say?
That you mean that hope? Spell it for Nick.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me because I love you.
Thank you, and I love you. Four lines. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I don't think it has to be in that exact order, but it's called Ho'oponopono. I think it's H-O apostrophe O apostrophe P-O apostrophe N-O, something like that. Do your voice recognition and Google and just say Ho'oponopono. It comes up. His name was Dr. Len or something like that. Dr. Lon, I think. I can't remember, but it's an amazing, amazing story. It's really an amazing, powerful story.
Our amazing Margie has found a website and a link for us and put it in the chat if somebody wants to click on that or copy the link for later.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably other places online you can find it, but I was so intrigued, Baba, when you were saying it. I was like, oh, I need to know about that. I'm sitting here thinking we've almost come full circle from our initial beginning discussion, because when you were talking, Indira, it was about, it all comes back to us going inward and doing our own work and letting go of any perceived or expected outcome of what it might be. When you were talking about the being above the waves, what I equate that to is looking at life from up in this place where I'm looking down, but I'm not connected. I don't know how to describe this other than saying, when I look at what I'm seeing, I'm not attaching it to a past narrative. I'm not attaching it to a perception that I think what it might be. And I'm not attaching it to an emotion, which those are the things that can pull me into the weeds.
Yep.
And all it is information. And I've had more of those experiences where I can look at life and I'm like, okay, that's just information. And before I would have been like, oh, look what's happening to me. Look what's being done. What am I going to do? I'm afraid life isn't going to, it's a downward spiral.
Right.
And when I look at it, that it's just information in that moment. Oh, okay. So this isn't really about me, but it's providing me information and I can make choices moving forward based on the information. And I don't have to attach it to, I'm a terrible person, I'm not enough, it's my fault, whatever those narratives are.
Right.
And I want to live more from the place of looking at life and just being like, oh, okay, it's just information.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And it reminded me of getting my lip waxed. It's like putting your attention in a place that's not about the story of the pain is about to come, it's really, it's the same thing. I did that because when I was a child, I was terrified of shots. I mean, I was so terrified I'd have nightmares and I would wake up in the night and I'd think, oh, I wish somebody would just sneak up on me and do it because I want it to be over with. I just, and when I got to the doctor, I'd worked myself up into such frenzy that I literally ran from the doctor. And in my household, you didn't run from a spanking or anything like that. That just was not in. So I was terrified. To the fact that I was able to run, I was so terrified that I don't know why I was so afraid. But over the years now, my gosh, I can hold a conversation while I'm having a shot or having my blood drawn or whatever, and it's no big deal. But it started with me putting my attention in another place. It started with that. And so it's right. The text says that if you have some self-mastery at all, you've learned to do this in an unconscious way. And it's the master just learns to use this principle consciously with willpower. Yeah. Who else?
One of the things that I thought about with the description of the pendulum.
Yeah.
Pendulum is kind of like a ball at the end of the string or chain.
Right.
And if you have the same energy to start that ball swinging back and forth, if you change the length of the string, it might, if it's shorter, that means that it swings faster. If it's longer, it swings a little bit slower, but with more force. So we can make a decision and figure a way to either lengthen or shorten that string ourselves.
Wow.
One of the things that I have started doing, if I feel that pendulum swinging in a way that I don't want it to swing, I'll start chanting the Gayatri mantra, and there's a whole bunch of different translations of that, but it basically, to me, means give us some understanding, give me some understanding, give me some light, show me the way, a variety of things like that, and it calms me down. I don't know whether that's shortening the string or lengthening it. Honestly, I think it's probably shortening it. But anyway, it works for me.
Yeah, it depends on which way you cut the metaphor, I guess. I mean, you're raising your vibration, so it's higher, or you're lessening the impact or whatever, but yeah. Oh, that is beautiful. I love that. It tells me that you really do understand this principle clearly.
I also wanted to make a comment about, someone had mentioned a little bit ago about being woke. And I had this vision as that was said, that like, I think in my mind, I think like, I've got to get to this place of being woke, and then I'll live there from being woke all the time. But then I was thinking, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, I'm awake, I'm woke. And maybe my energy scale is like a 7 or 8, and then I'll go throughout the day and it'll vacillate on the continuum. And for me, it was this aha of being woke in this spiritual shift that I'm hoping to be on this train. I hope I am on it. That there's variations of it, and it's not like a destination that I stay on all the time, and that's okay. And that, it's a journey and it's a process, and I need to allow myself to be in that process as I am. And so there's varying levels of woke that I experience, and that's okay.
Wow.
Because sometimes I tend to think I don't belong, or I don't fit in, or I'm not enough to be someplace until I'm there. My career's been in behavioral health. Well, I could minimize my work, because I don't have a master's degree. Well, you know what? There's a lot that I do know, and there's a lot that I've been able to do without it. So it's not this destination that once I get to this place, I'm going to be like as spiritually grounded and loving as I perceive Indira to be, or, someone else. And that's not what it's about. And anyway.
Awesome. That is so wonderful that you said that. I love that, really. You have a way of encapsulating a principle and explaining it in a really concise way, and not just concise, but yeah. I had a stroke a few years ago. I used to be articulate. I have no idea where my words are sometimes, but it's just rich. It's just rich. Anyway, yeah, thank you. That was lovely. Does anybody else have anything to say before we close?
just wanted to say great class and thank you all.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, all of you. This has been one of my favorites so far. I've just enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
I echo that. Thank you all.
Yes, yes. Yeah, because I mean, I could talk about this all by myself. It would not be the same. I learn as I talk. I learn as I listen. I absorb more as I listen. It's just wonderful to have this group and companions to evolution.
I think about that when I first came on board to this group. Like, I struggled to feel like I fit in, which is kind of my narrative that I can get hooked into. But when I look back over the months that I've been participating, it's one group I really look forward to. And I'm like, I take away these things. And it makes me think, Indira, you asked a while ago, how do we raise our vibration? For me, it's something even as much as participating in this, because where I'm at now and where I was at an hour and a half ago, my vibration's raised. And it's because I've been with each of you, taking in what you're saying, feeling heard by you. And that's I think the collective healing that's happening, and really just speaks to, for me, that I need to keep surrounding myself with people who have what I want.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. Prasad, did you want to say?
That's not easy to find people that are you same vibration for same waves. It's very difficult. It's not. You cannot find it everywhere. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We're special. I think that we are some kind of a special group of people.
Think about the beauty of the internet, because we're spread out across the country, and here we are together as one.
Oregon, New York, Atlanta. Yeah. And Aditi, I expected her. She's in Cleveland, she probably couldn't have come, but so yeah, we're all over the place, and thank God for the internet. I think the internet is a physical metaphor and a physical precursor to the spiritual reality that we're moving into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sakarna Maharaj Ki Jai. I'm going to end the recording.